wise man proportions his belief to the evidence. So said our first philosopher David Hume, which correlates perfectly with how he further developed John Locke and George Berkeley's philosophy on empiricism. Hume was born in 1711 in the United Kingdom, as were many other great philosophers we have covered, such as Francis Bacon and John Locke. Although his family planned for him to follow a career as a lawyer, his passions for literature caused him to leave his schooling at the University of Edinburgh. From 1734 to 1737, he lived in France frugally, as he composed a treatise of human nature on his path to create a naturalistic science of man. Although he considered its reception unsuccessful, this marked his first step on a path to literary greatness. Subsequently, Hume came out with his essays Moral and Political in 1751 and Political Discourses in 1752. He spent the 1760s as a secretary to the British ambassador and under the Secretary of State. In 1769, he returned to his birthplace of Edinburgh, where he lived profitably and passed away in 1776.
David Hume had many philosophical connections. He built on the scientific method which was created by Sir Isaac Newton. He also used and was influenced by John Locke's epistemology. His influence can primarily be seen in the philosophies of three philosophers. Immanuel Kant was influenced and used his ideas in his critical philosophy. Auguste Comte was influenced by him in his positivism. Traces of Hume can be seen in utilitarianism, created by Jeremy Bentham.
In the world of philosophy, David Hume had several key contributions. Some of Hume's written contributions are Treatise of Human Nature, Essays, Morals, and Political, an inquiry concerning human understanding, an inquiry concerning the principles of morals, Political Discourses, and dialogues concerning natural religion. David Hume was known for asking, how can we know the true nature of things? If artful authors can lead readers to accept conflicting ideas about morality, religion, and the true nature of physical reality, are these ideas equally true? Or is there some method by which to discover the reason for this conflicting of ideas? Another contribution from Hume was the theory of knowledge. David Hume believed that reason alone cannot be the source of all knowledge, rather through natural experience. The two simple ideas we receive are through sensation like colors, shapes, and sounds. The second idea derives from reflection of one's own witness of thinking, reasoning, and willing. Hume was known for empiricism, skepticism, and naturalism. Empiricism is that there is no rational justification for saying that bodies or things have a continued and independent existence external to us. Hume wanted to engage the question of why do we think there is an external world? For Hume's skepticism, Hume believed in two forms of skepticism, antecedent and consequent. Hume's skepticism led to his discovery of how limited is the range of the human thought. For naturalism, Hume did not believe in God, but rather in the order of nature. Instead of believing in creationism, Hume persisted that the order of the universe is an empirical fact and that it does not correlate to a God.
David Hume was a philosopher who focused mainly on the idea of empiricism. He wrote several important works in the late 18th century. He focused on how experience is the main source of knowledge and how knowledge is not gained from reason alone. He brought a new constructive sense of skepticism to discovering the truths of human nature. According to Hume, desire was one of the main controllers of human behavior, and this is something he introduced as a key concept in discussing the nature of humans, which was debated frequently in the 18th century. He built upon the ideas of Locke and Berkeley, bringing a more skeptical and radical view to empiricism. He created a philosophical approach that did not address the concept of a god, something readers of his work found attractive, as some found the ontological argument to be untrue and wanted an approach to philosophy that did not focus mainly on religion. His ideals challenged many philosophers of the 18th century and gave them a new approach to philosophy, such as Jeremy Bentham. Bentham took Hume's concept of utility, or how we assess actions based on usefulness, and built his ethical theory of utilitarianism on it. His works and statements on empiricism also led Kant and Comte, two important philosophers of the 18th century, to a new way of thinking, bringing on a more modern era of philosophy. His ideas, found in empiricism, was used by many philosophers, and some of his concepts are discussed even to this day.
You can't touch this. You can't touch this. You can't touch this.
Our second philosopher, Immanuel Kant, lived his entire life in Königsberg, East Prussia. He was raised by pietist parents who had permanent influence throughout Kant's life. He studied the classics, physics, and philosophy at the University of Königsberg. While enrolled in the University of Königsberg, Kant was influenced by his professor, Martin Knudsen. Knudsen stimulated Kant's intrigue in Newtonian physics as well as critical philosophy. After completion at the university, Kant became a family tutor for about 8 years. In 1755, he acquired a job as a lecturer at the University of Königsberg, and in 1770 was appointed chair of philosophy, a position formerly held by Martin Knudsen. Kant did not travel throughout his life or boast of any considerable events. However, he was well known in his area and became an immensely successful lecturer. He was known for his precise schedule and was an intriguing conversationalist as well as a charming host till he passed away in 1804.
Immanuel Kant had huge influence in the philosophical world. In his own theories, Kant incorporated rationalism from René Descartes and empiricism from Francis Bacon. He was considered to be the most influential thinker of the Enlightenment era. He influenced many of the philosophers following him. He also had great influence on the school of Kantianism and the school of idealism.
The great Immanuel Kant had a large amount of contributions to the philosophical world. For Immanuel Kant's written contributions, he wrote Critique of Pure Reason, Prolegomena to Any Future Metaphysics, Principles of the Metaphysics of Morals, Metaphysical First Principles of Natural Science, The Critique of Pure Reason, the Critique of Practical Reason, The Critique of Judgment, Religion Within the Limits of Pure Reason, and Perpetual Peace. Kant is also known for his famous comment, "Two things fill the mind with ever new, and increasing admiration and awe, the starry heavens above and the moral law within." Kant also contributed his thinking to the critical philosophy, which this is a critical inquiry into the faculty of reason, with reference to all the knowledge which it may strive to attain independently of all experience. It's to ask the question, what and how much can understanding and reason know apart from all experience? Kant also contributed the structure of rational thought, which, according to Kant, there are two sources of human knowledge, which perhaps spring from a common but to us unknown root, namely sensibility and understanding. Through the former, objects are given to us, through the later that they are thought. One of Kant's last contributions are phenomenal and noumenal reality. Kant believed that human knowledge is forever limited in its scopes. These scopes consist of two forms. The first form is that knowledge is limited to the world of experience. The second thought is that our knowledge is limited by the manner in which our faculties of perception and thinking organize the raw data of experience.
Immanuel Kant also made a large impact on philosophy, metaphysics, and ethics in his lifetime. To this day, concepts he wrote about can be found within our modern philosophy and rationalism. He was also influenced by Hume's approach to empiricism, changing his rationalist views to come up with new concepts on metaphysics and truth, which resulted in what he called critical philosophy. This was a combination of the best traits of empiricism and rationalism, along with new concepts Kant believed true. He wrote on the concepts of noumenal and phenomenal, separating science and reason, and the way we approach them. This affects our thinking today, as we realize that there are different ways to discover different truths based on reason or science. Kant approaches the concepts of beauty and aesthetics also in a new way. He considers it a subjective concept, but universal, something that may vary person to person, but a form of judgment. He brings to philosophy the idea that reason in the mind is structured by experiences and categories, a blend between the rationalist and empirist ideas. He really rejected many of the extreme ideals of each of these philosophical approaches, yet based his new concepts on a combination of his own thoughts and these approaches. He created a new philosophical approach based on science and reason, and wrote about many concepts found in modern philosophy, or that influenced later philosophers in the future. His critical philosophy brought about the 19th century German idealism. They took his ideas and built off of them, emphasizing the mind and organizing our experiences. He was an influential philosopher whose ideas can be found interwoven in the later philosophies to come, and even in our modern times.
You can't touch this. You can't touch this. You can't touch this.